Welcome and good afternoon, everybody, to the City of Farmers Branch study session for Tuesday, August 6th, 4 o'clock. Our first item of business will be citizen comment, and I have one person signed up to speak during study session for citizen comments, so let me just remind you that when you come up, go up to the podium at the front, state your name and address. There's a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak with a reasonable limitation on speakers on any one topic. Please be courteous and refrain from any disparaging or inflammatory remarks directed at any member of a board or commission, staff, or the city council. And our first speaker during study session is Bill Glancy.
Where you want me to go?
Up to the podium, yes. Jeff, would you make sure that we can hear them?
Yes, sir. Oh.
Okay. You all set? All right. Thank you, council, for letting me come and speak to you. I've been concerned. I've had some of you speak to me about an item that's on the agenda. I think it's K10, which is where we're talking, the discussion about narrowing the streets out here on Valley View. And initially, I kind of brushed it off and thought, well, I don't know if it's important or not. But, you know, and really thinking about it and, you know, serving in your position in the past, sometimes you really don't give a lot of this stuff a lot of in-depth thought that maybe it should. And one of the things that's always bothered me over recent years is when we went from industrial west side to residential west side, I was always concerned about how we were going to keep these two communities together and make us one and make us a west side and east side and all that. And the other thing that's always been concerned was, you know, we really don't have an identity of a downtown area to Farmers Branch. And I think that Dart Station area is a prime area to do that. And I think we've got a lot of the pieces in place down there already. We've got the Star Center and the new athletic complex and a lot of things that's down there which could bring people together. And as we learn, society changes and people's habits change. And today, I think we need to do things to encourage people to get out of their apartments, get out of the high-density housing and things like that, and interact with each other. And I think if we could do it properly down there, I think it would really make a lot of sense to go ahead. You know, it's always hard to turn down $3 million when somebody, and I know it's other state money, but if they don't give it to us, they'll give it to somebody else. And I would just like us to reconsider that, take it back off of consent and revisit that item, because I think it really makes sense. And I understand here a few years ago, there became an issue over street diet, and it became a big hot political issue. But, you know, I was on the council back in the years when most all these main thoroughfares were built. And there was never any justification for us to build a 6-lane street. We had the right-of-way, and it was easier to do at that time than it is to build. We went from 2 lanes instead of 4, we just went on to 6. And none of the traffic studies I've ever seen has ever told us that most of the streets require 6 lanes to transit. You know, very few people have to stay over one visit cycle through a light to get through it. So if we don't have people stacked up to have 3 lanes, my time up?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, finish it. Finish your thought.
Can I finish? Okay. So I just don't think that's necessarily, I wouldn't do it all over the city, but in that area down there, I think it makes sense, guys. And I think that for us to do that, and I've talked to quite a few people, explained it to them, and most of them say, oh, it makes sense. Why don't we do it? So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do not have anybody else signed up to speak down here on that item, so thank you. We will move on to the next item, which is C1, discuss regular agenda items. Councilman Roman?
Nope, don't have anything.
Council,
Yeah, I would like to move item K10 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. Further discussion?
very good. We will move K10 to M2. M as in Mary. Done. Anything else?
That's all I have for now.
Okay, Councilman Neal?
No, sir.
Councilman Jackson?
I'm going to agree with the move of K10. I think that makes sense. No other concerns.
Okay, very good. Next up is item C2, discussion with CFB ISD representatives regarding the redevelopment of Farmers Branch Elementary and Cox Park.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Bring up the presentation real quick. Okay, I'll go and bring up the team with the school district. I'm Robert Diaz, Parks and Rec Director. I'm going to introduce Jennifer Craddock with Glenn Partners, and she's with the school district design team for this project. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer, introduce her team, and go through the presentation.
Hello, thank you for seeing us tonight. So I'm Jennifer Craddock with Glenn Partners Architects, here with Patrick Glenn, also with Glenn Partners Architects. We're representing the Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District. This is Corey Blackburn, the Executive Construction Officer. We also have in the room Chris Moore, who is the Superintendent of Operations. And we also have several of our engineers with us in case there are questions that come up for civil engineering or traffic engineering. So I'd like to turn it over to Corey to kind of explain why we're here.
Just as a brief introduction, as y'all may know, the 2023, yes, sir.
State your name, please.
Corey Blackburn, the Executive Construction Officer for Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD. As y'all know, in the 2023 bond planning for Carrollton Farmers Branch, part of that planning was a replacement school for Farmers Branch Elementary. So as we began to look at that site after the bond passed, it became apparent there were some concerns with overlap of city facilities and property boundaries with the school district property. And so we wanted to take a look at that, develop some options for us to consider together. And that's why they've got some options for us to take a look at today.
Thanks, Corey. My name is Patrick Glenn with Glenn Partners. I'm just going to run through the quick slideshow real quick. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to review some existing conditions and then just a couple of site and planning studies. So just to kind of familiarize everyone where the site is, it's that orange dot right in the middle of the screen, right next to Orrin Good Park. If I zoom in a little bit closer, you can see the Farmers Branch Elementary School on the right-hand side of the screen, the existing Vivian Field Middle School on the left, Cox Fields in between those two schools, and then Orrin Good Park just to the south. So if we zoom in a little bit more, you can start to see the existing Farmers Branch Elementary School. It's about 10-acre parcel. You can start to see the thick property line that's representing the property boundary between the city and the school district. You also can see that there are 5 fields that either are on the school district's property or span the property line of the shared property between the city and the school district. And like Corey mentioned, we were asked to look at just some feasibility options. This is not a design, just some feasibility options on how we could clean up the property line and then potentially rebuild a school and try to improve some of the issues that are on site today. So we also looked at where a lot of the utilities are from electrical, gas to water, storm, sanitary sewer, just to see if those impacted any of our studies. Identify the current setbacks, front yard, side yard, the maximum building height, the rear yard setbacks, and how it's currently zoned on the site. So a couple of the planning studies, what you see is basically the existing site, and you see those 5 soccer fields to the left with the existing footprint as it stands today. Very, very limited parking on site, very limited ability to drop off or pick up from bus or parents on site. We've also noted the current size of the fields and then the ratio of how big or small a soccer field can be and still meet the regulations. So this is basically option A, rebuilding the existing Farmers Branch Elementary School roughly in the same location, but redoing the property line so it's a little bit more clean on sharing the property. It would mean that this existing soccer field would remain as is in its current orientation, and then everything that you see in green would either be repositioned or reconfigured or resized. In this study, the existing soccer field in the light gray would be behind a secure fence for safety and security reasons for the school, but would still be accessed after hours by the city. This one to the south of it is a repositioned and resized soccer field. It would be on the school district's property, but it would still be open and accessed as most of the fields are today. And then the second option, which is less disruptive, but we have to be a little bit more creative on how the property line snakes around the fields. All 5 fields basically remain undisturbed in their same size, their same orientation, but we got to get real clever with the property line. And as architects, when we design this building, we'll have to be clever. But then this one field would be behind that secured fence for safety and security reasons for the school district. I might add, in both schemes, we've doubled, or in some cases almost tripled, the amount of queuing that's on site. We've doubled the amount of parking that's on site. We've separated parent drop-off to potential bus drop-off in both of these conditions here off Richland Avenue and off Tomfield Road. So hopefully we're improving the drop-off and pickup, but again, this is only a feasibility study. No real design or engineering has been done at this stage. So I think at this point, it's really for questions or discussion for the design team.
Thank you very much. Council, you have any questions? Councilman Neal?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Jackson?
You haven't done any engineering on this yet, but what about coordinating the traffic patterns of Farmers Branch Elementary School with the traffic patterns associated with Vivian Field?
Yeah, we'd have to do that, and data would have to be collected. We'd need to do that during the academic year, so hopefully next week and the weeks after, we'll be able to be on site and collect that data. And Jody and his team would be a part of that data collection that would inform kind of the design direction that we would go. Haven't been able to get a lot of that data during the summer because the school's not in session.
Sure. And you haven't drastically changed the location of the traffic flow, really. You're trying to separate bus from parent, drop off better.
Yeah.
So perhaps there's not that big of an impact, but that was just the first thing that came to mind was you have 2 schools there.
Yeah. Right now, most of the drop-off happens off Tomfield Road. Option A would split it. You'd have some coming off Tomfield and then some coming off of Richland. And then option B, it's kind of almost the reverse, probably 2/3 coming off of Tomfield, which today it's probably 100%, and then some coming off of Richland. But again, that engineering study would help guide us on what's the optimal solution once we are able to collect the data and understand the start times of the elementary school at the start time of the middle school as well.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for now, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Reed?
I know you haven't done any engineering. Is the expectation that the school's going to be approximately same size? We thinking of increasing it, or?
I believe the existing school is 76,000 square feet, and we're, at least the study that we've been asked to look at is taking account a 90,000 square foot elementary school. That does not necessarily mean it's extra students or a higher enrollment. That could be just right sizing current spaces to be a little bit bigger than they currently are.
Okay, great. And yeah, I think the ability to increase parking is fantastic for usage for all the facilities. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Roman?
So I appreciate that one of the things you mentioned is that you guys are going to be looking into the interaction between the elementary and middle school students as kind of maybe things get a little bit closer so in terms of traffic. And then let me hold my second point until I ask this question. At any point, is the school going to be shut down for the construction and students are going to be bused around to other schools?
So Corey can probably answer this question a little bit better than I can. You want to?
We're looking at a couple of different options. So one option, what we're hopeful we might be able to do is to relocate the students and completely, to shorten the time, we're going to be under construction and just take it all the way down and bring it all the way back and house the students elsewhere. Or the other option is portables are just really expensive and we'd really rather not do that unless we absolutely have to. So we're going to try and do everything we can to avoid any sort of portable setup.
Okay. My understanding is, and it's just a conversation I had with the city manager during my my one-on-one meetings, but my understanding was that we were going to be having a discussion whereby there was going to be some sort of land swap where the school was essentially moving to the opposite sides of the field so that the students, that could be under construction. The current school as it stands would be functional, and it would be a very easy kind of light switch that you turn on and off. So it's like when one is finished, then the students move over to that one. So that way there's no interruption, there's no busing going on. It's more economical from the school district's perspective, but also it preserves the community of the students that are in there. Many of the students that are there at that school are from my district, and so the familiarity of seeing people that they live with and continuing that relationship with their peers in the same age group, I think is important to preserve. And I think busing people around is going to kind of distract from that and split that up. So that's my concern. So I thought we were going to be having that discussion. So maybe help me understand where that might have changed.
That it was a concept that we did discuss. However, if we do the hopscotch option, if you will, that puts the new building right next to Vivian Field. And that's going to make your traffic, I would say, almost certainly worse.
Probably undesirable.
Yeah.
Just think getting the traffic and the front doors so close together on that one intersection could be problematic. So we're trying to keep them separated as much as we can.
Okay. So if you're ideally doing construction, how long of a time period would construction take, and how long would students need to be bused? Would it be for an entire school year? Would it be for 2 school years, a portion of it?
What we would hope to be able to do is to be able to start at the beginning of the summer and finish at the end of the following summer and complete it within 18 months.
Okay,
So 1 school year for students,
okay.
hopefully.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Can you tell me about the rest of the process? Obviously, you're meeting with us today, and I'm not sure if the goal is to walk away with a consensus of which option makes best sense. But after this, you still have to go before trustees, or what's the next major step for you all?
The next step for us is to begin the design process, but before we can begin the design process, we need to establish the property lines.
Okay.
So if we're going to change the property lines, we want to get that done first.
Okay.
So we're not wasting our money on redesign.
Okay. Well, obviously, when you look at where things are today and where the property lines are, I'd say, the school district and the city have been very good neighbors. And so we want to maintain that relationship,
Yes, sir.
obviously. When you're talking about new property lines and new fencing around the school, is that going to be like wrought iron fencing or chain link?
You may have seen some nearby schools such as Stark where we put in new fencing. We've got new fencing that's gone in at McLaughlin Strickland and Blair, I believe. It's a 6-foot wrought iron fence, pretty simple, nothing unusual. It's pretty basic.
But it's a definite upgrade from the old chain link fence.
And it meets the security parameters that the TEA have established for anti-scaling. So that's
Okay.
what we're looking to do.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that. In looking at, I'll say, option 2, I noticed where you reoriented the 2 large soccer fields, they're also approximately 45 by 65. We're losing 45 by 65 on each of those plots, if you will, each of those
I think
fields.
you're probably referring to option A.
Or,
This one?
Yeah.
well, option A, I'm sorry, yes. And so that concerns me somewhat. Obviously, whatever we do to preserve the fields and keep them as intact as possible, because one, Farmers Branch is known city and a park. Two, we do have a lot of soccer tournaments and things like that that utilize those fields. And so we hate to lose.
Sure, it's
Our
a
opportunity.
compromise in this scheme, for sure. The thing with soccer fields is they give you a range of size to meet your regulation. It's not like a football field where it has to be 100 yards, or a basketball court that's got to be 94 feet long. They do give you a range. This does meet the range, but it is a little smaller than what the current fields are today. That's why option B shows very little to zero disruption on the
Right.
field size or orientation.
Okay. And in looking at option A versus option B, is there is there a big cost difference between the two? Are we essentially looking about the same?
This is me speaking, I think option B is probably a little more affordable because you're not having to redo irrigation lines, you're not regrading the fields. So I think option B probably is a little more affordable because those 5 fields can stay untouched and operational potentially through construction. Where option A, there is some regrading, some rework that's gotta happen.
B should definitely have less site work. B should have less site work
Okay, so.
by quite a bit.
So there's probably some efficiencies
Yes.
to be achieved there. So when I read this, in reading through, just that was sort of what made the best sense in my mind, but I didn't know if I was missing anything else that might need to be considered, whatnot. You know, as Councilman Roman said earlier, I think originally we were thinking that, okay, this was going to be a situation where a new school was going to be built or could have been built with that minimal amount of disruption. Of course, it would take away soccer fields and whatnot, but I think we could certainly handle that. But I understand your issue with traffic and trying to separate the two, because it would probably overwhelm the neighborhood. The neighborhood wasn't built for that kind of traffic.
Yeah, I think the win-win for this option is you're not flipping the site. So if you flip the site, not only are you putting the elementary school closer to the middle school, which could be problematic, but then also you're disrupting those 5 fields and having to regrade and rebuild them.
Sure. And there is a little bit more, what appears to be a little bit more parking with B than there currently is right now,
That's right.
Yeah, a little bit.
a little bit. So, okay. That's all I have. Council is, I guess I'll ask if anybody has a preference for one option over the other.
At this time, no. Quick question though, what time does the middle school and what time does the elementary school start and end?
Oh, Chris, help me on this. I'm going to say the wrong time. I want to say elementary starts at 7:30, I believe, and I believe middle school starts at 7:45 or 8. Or is it 8:15? We considered some options, and so now I can't keep any of it straight.
Classes start at 7:30 at the elementary school. Still looking at the middle school.
And usually middle school starts later than elementary, but
Yeah, it's elementary, then middle, then high school is the way the progression works. I think it's 40 minutes.
I know Blaylock started at 8:05, that was the first bell.
Elementary
Middle school.
start time 7:30 to 2:50. Middle school 8:10 to 3:50.
There we go.
High school
8:10.
8:40.
so 40
What was high?
minutes.
What was the high?
High school is 8:40 start time, 4 o'clock.
Okay.
I will say, I think part of the confusion here is when this conversation first started with the school district, it was approached with partnering in, what that looked like. And our original, from the calls we recently had is last week, we were making sure our public works, parks teams were all there to address any concerns there would be with the reconfiguration that involved the switch, because the benefit to the community is the school not moving the students around. And so that's why there's a little bit of questions about what happened to the original conversation that I believe city staff were still having as recently as 3 business days ago, to make sure our public works team, which would ultimately be responsible for helping solve any traffic concerns, but also preserving the fabric of the neighborhood. Because that was one of the biggest concerns, was the elementary school and the students not having to be moved around. We already have traffic concerns at the other schools. So if you have more students at those elementary schools, that causes greater concerns as we work through those. As that's when we're looking at the options, which we appreciate the consideration and showing them to the city council. That was part of the questions as well, was the city came forward saying, hey, how can we be a good partner with it? And that was one of the topics. And so there's been a little bit of a pivot, which we appreciate being brought up to speed on. But originally, as I briefed my council on this one from the discussions we'd had, where it was how can we help the school district be successful here? You don't have to worry about logistics of moving the students. We can work with you on an engineering and traffic solution to help traffic move appropriately. It's never going to be perfect around schools. It's always going to be busy in the mornings and afternoons. But I feel like that's part of the piece. I would like to maybe continue that conversation with you all separately and report back to my city council with a memo and provide an update just to make sure we understand which direction the school district is looking to go with these, so I can give them an update, because this is a little bit of a different approach from what we had originally discussed. And so I just want to make sure
We'd be happy to continue the conversation. And again, I just want to emphasize, our concern in kind of the 2 options that are presented here was really the long-term impact of the traffic over time versus the short-term impact of what you'd have to deal with during construction. So we were trying to optimize for the least long-term impact as far as traffic goes, but happy to continue the conversation.
Thank you.
I think, go ahead, Councilman. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, Mayor, you'd asked if we had any preferences, but I would say that option B would be my preference. It's the least disruptive. The school needs to be rebuilt. The existing property is pretty old. Although there's going to be a lot of sad people in town, because there's a lot of people still here that went there. But the short-term disruption is the cost to the community. When you move those kids to other schools, are they going to be in different schools? Is there one school that can take all those kids? How does that work? And if we're getting ahead of ourselves here, just tell me. But in my mind, I'm just trying to understand families that are watching this today, seeing that this is coming, or probably have the same questions. Well, what school will my kid be going to? Or will their friends be going to different schools, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's still a little early to answer that question. We're looking at several different options on how we would approach that, so we really don't have an answer at this point.
Okay.
Thank you. But obviously, from what you've put forth with A and B, obviously we create the less amount of disruption as far as the field side of things goes. And, in my mind, that makes best sense, just because you don't have to re-engineer all of that area. Council?
And just for clarification, we'd be talking about starting summer of 2025, is that accurate?
If we're able to get design started in time,
Okay.
but we're getting kind of close up on that to be able to hit that time frame.
So in order to hit that, what's the planning timeline right now?
We would need to, for us to be able to do that, we would probably need to have the property line settled by next month to give the design team long enough to have the documents ready to go and have the procurement done for construction, yeah.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Councilman Young?
I was just going to say that, given these are the only 2 options we have, I'd be in favor of option 2 and concur with Councilman Jackson.
Choice between A and B, I choose 2.
Two B and B. Okay.
Exactly.
Councilman Baird?
I agree.
Thank
two.
you. Okay. Councilman?
Neither.
What?
Neither.
Okay, the council is supportive of option B
Okay.
at this point. But I'll let you continue to work through other options or solutions with our city manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Can I
Yes,
ask
sir.
one more question,
Oh,
Mayor?
one more question.
One more question. This is actually for Ben. Ben, are there any concerns or initial thoughts on just the change in the property boundaries in this option versus sort of just the square, clean boundaries of the option A or any other potential option?
Not yet. I'll need to get with the team and make sure, because there's infrastructure obviously involved. I'd want us to hear from Public Works on what their feelings on traffic flows are and patterns. Obviously, police as well, because we have an SRO at one of those facilities. Just what do we feel all the different variables and impacts are for these two new proposals in there? But no, absolutely. We'll definitely get that feedback ready for the council.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Promise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Next item is C3, discuss an amendment to the Code of Ordinances related to the vacant building registration ordinance.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you. Thanks. See you soon.
Okay. Sorry, this is not working. Mm-mm. Okay, no. There we go, I got it. I think so. Okay, so it's not, how do I get it?
Yeah, just go to display mode.
There you go.
Just exit out of,
Yeah, up here.
and then just hit the
This
presentation.
presentation
And
mode
then just
here,
release.
that one.
Hang on.
Then you should be able to tap through it.
I think-
Oh, it may have to use this. Yeah.
Okay.
Just use that.
I'll
That's
take
fine.
this.
Sorry about
Alright.
that.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Christina Ramheld, Code Enforcement Manager. And I am here today to discuss a proposed amendment to our vacant building registration at the request of Councilmember Neal. Vacant buildings have been in place in Farmers Branch since 2012. And this was actually intended for us to be able to monitor these vacant buildings for any kind of emergency situations. The number of permits that have been issued in 2023 was about 14, and in 2024 thus far, we have had 10. There has been limited research that we have been able to see in our peer municipalities, as several of the cities around us do not enforce vacant building registrations. But the few that I have been able to find have been in Louisville, Irving, and Dallas. At this time, Louisville currently requires a yearly registration, a plan, a floor plan, and insurance. Irving requires a yearly registration, a plan, a diagram. They have to be up to date on taxes and insurance. And Dallas only utilizes it in the central business district, downtown, and not citywide, but they require a yearly registration, insurance, up to date on taxes, and a building plan. Our current program requires them registration to register and have a fee, and they are required an inspection by a code enforcement officer. And the signage is for emergencies, so that way we have a contact that we're able to get a hold of quickly in case there's an emergency on the property. And then there may be a maintenance bond that's placed on the property, and the only way that we apply this is if there has been an abatement on the property in the past 12 months. The proposal that we are requesting at this time is a plan of action, and that will do a current future use of the property. What is the plan for it in the future? Ongoing maintenance. What is the plan for maintenance on that property? How long does that property plan to be vacant? We're also going to require a sketch and diagram, as well as insurance on the property. Regarding the vacancy life of the property, we don't really have a timeline of how long the property can be vacant, or limiting the permits, or requiring them to occupy the property or demolish the property. That would fall under a constitutional right that I can swing over to David to answer any questions regarding that. And then our communication plan regarding this, we would be advertising the changes on social media periodically. We would run an ad in the branch bulletin for a month for all of the residents to see. And then we would be providing all new changes on the website on the code enforcement page. Additionally to these things, we would also rely heavily on the code enforcement officers since they're the ones that are out in the field. They'll communicate these items with the affected property owners as well as the residents of the neighborhood. And then I will open this up to discussion and direction.
Discussion? Councilman Baird?
All right. So on your second slide, background and research, where it says Louisville requires a plan versus a floor plan, is the plan just like what they plan to do with it?
Correct, yes, what
Okay.
they plan to do with it, yes, sir.
So next slide. Proposed. So can you give me some idea of current and future use? How does that information help the city?
So basically, it'll explain to us, was this a project that was started and was unable to be completed? Was this somebody unexpectedly died and the property is vacant? It kind of helps us understand what is your current use for it? Are you planning on leaving it vacant? Are you planning on doing something with the property? And then what is your future use? How long is it going to be like this?
Okay, so what does that information do for the city?
It helps us understand how long that property is going to be vacant, how long we're going to be monitoring it for, and kind of understanding what's happening with this building in our city. So that way we're aware of it as code enforcement. So for example, if there is like a fire on the property, then fire kind of has an idea, hey, this is an empty property, nothing is in it, they had torn it down to the studs, and there's nothing inside that we need to be aware of.
Okay. But somebody could certainly just say, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, they could say, I don't know.
They can say it will be
Sure.
indefinitely. Okay, so
Sure.
to me, that point is, I understand what you're saying, but it's kind of a non-point because they can answer in that way. Ongoing maintenance. So are you proposing that we inspect it yearly and that they're doing certain things? Or?
Yeah, ensuring that they are mowing the lawn, cutting the vegetation, letting us know, hey, this is our plan. We're going to have lawn keepers out here from March to September to ensure that the grass is being cut, the vegetation is being taken care of. Somebody's inspecting the fence to make sure if it falls down. Basically letting us know, hey, we're going to have somebody who's maintaining this property.
Okay, so all of that is already in place under existing codes.
They're going to give us a plan. That's going to be part of their plan. So their plan
Well-
of action.
Well, again, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying, we currently have code enforcement officers that look at all the properties in the
Sure.
in the city. And this doesn't seem to be needed at all because this point of I mean, they can say, yes, I'm going to do all of that. And if they don't do it, then we will cite them. But if we don't have that point in there, we're still going to cite them because
Sure.
we're going to see it. And then the vacancy timeframe, again, just seems, they can say forever. Anyway, I'm just wondering, the sketch and the diagram, I'm all fine with because that could be, I guess, would that be beneficial for the fire department to have a sketch of all the properties that are vacant?
That'd be good, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I can totally support that. And then insurance, how does that work as far as what is the benefit to the city
So,
there?
so it's really what we were trying to do here is we were trying to mirror our peer municipalities, and these are the things that they had in place. And so one of the things with the insurance is just ensuring that this isn't a property that is just sitting there. If something does happen with the property, they have insurance on the property, and they're required to provide that for us.
So if it burned down, you're wanting them to have insurance so that it can be hauled away, I guess?
That would be the benefit to the property owner, yes.
Okay, but there's still no, even if they have insurance, there's still no guarantee that if it burns down, that they're going to haul it away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the only thing I see on the proposed is the sketch and the diagram that we don't either already have or would be really of any benefit. But I appreciate your.
Yes, sir. Councilman Reed.
Thank you for being here. Couple of things I noticed on, when you did the comparisons to the other communities, that they had said they were current on taxes. I don't see that as a requirement on either one, whether it's current or proposed.
And we can add that if we want to make sure that they are up to date on their taxes, we can definitely add that as well.
Okay. would make sense
Sure.
in my mind anyway.
Yeah.
And then as far as the registration, I saw a couple were annual registrations.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, where do we stand? What's our policy on
Ours,
that?
we have an annual registration as well. It's $200, and if they are late, then it's 50% of that annual registration fee.
Okay, so we do have that in place.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what Councilman Baird had brought up regarding those other items, current and future use, obviously someone can say, I don't know, they, whatever, but I think it's good to request it. In my mind, it seems, makes sense to request it. Like you said, you have a timeline, you know how long it needs to be monitored, when to check in on that. As far as ongoing maintenance, makes sense to have a check, acknowledge upfront, this is what you're responsible for, so you can hold their feet to the fire, saying you've already acknowledged this. This is something they have to follow up on. And then, again, vacancy timeframe, I think that's important to know as well from a planning perspective. So it's a simple question to ask. They can say, I don't know, or not provide accurate information, but, I don't see the harm in having it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and then insurance, obviously, I believe that's important as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Roman.
I'm supportive of it as you've presented it. I think the information is necessary, and I think if I'm kind of reading between the lines and kind of listening to the discussion, I think what Councilmember Baird maybe was asking is what's the teeth, right? Like, what are we going to needlessly implement requirements that are not going to be respected, right? What's the teeth? What's the incentive for people to ensure that they're providing us with a plan of what their intent is with the property, or what they want to do, or how it started, to understand, like the example you gave of maybe somebody died and the plan stopped, maybe an investor fell through and the project stopped. How do we ensure that we get information that's accurate and useful? Like what's the teeth?
I think what our goal with this was when we put this together and after researching our peer municipalities, the goal of it was to show the owners of these vacant buildings that we are here and we are watching them, and we want to know what their plans are for these properties. Because as of right now, they're just registering these properties and moving on about their way. So I think when they're saying, hey, we are requiring all of these items, that we're showing them, hey, that code enforcement is involved. We're watching these properties. We want to know your plan of action. We don't just want these buildings to stay vacant. So I don't believe that there's necessarily teeth, maybe like a little nibble, I guess you would say. We're trying to just get somewhere to show them that we're here, we see them, and we want to do something with these vacant properties.
Yeah.
As far as I can go legally, so.
Yeah, no, I think I'm supportive of the proposed requirements, and, just, I guess we'll find out exactly how forthcoming people might want to be, and how useful the information is once it's implemented, but it might be helpful to maybe at some point, should this move forward, maybe a year from its implementation stage, have you guys come back to council and just kind of share how successful it's been, or if there are learning opportunities or changes we can make to it. Because if everyone's coming to you and saying, oh, I don't know, then it kind of defeats the purpose of it. But maybe there's also feedback that we can gather from other cities who are implementing that, and see if they had any issues with getting realistic or accurate information.
Absolutely.
Just a thought.
Thank
That's it.
Councilman Neal.
Yeah, I sort of asked this to be brought up because we have several properties in the district that I represent that are in this situation, and residents are asking, what can we do to help move this along? And so I think this proposal is a step in the right direction, at least maybe nudge the property owner a little bit, although we may not have the teeth that we'd like, but I'm in support of this proposal. I just think it's helpful to try to get a little more information from them and try to move it forward. So I understand there's nothing legally we can do. They could leave it vacant as long as they desire, as long as they're in compliance with these sort of things. Not much more we can do, so that's the only thing I have.
Thank you. Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. So generally, I support, the proposed ordinance changes. What I'm missing is what is the current issue with some of these buildings? If this has kind of been mentioned or implied around the table already, but if you're not mowing your grass, you've got overgrowth, we have code enforcement to address those issues without this ordinance, right? It's not illegal to have an empty building, but you need to be current on your taxes, right? So I think that would be priority number one, is addressing any delinquent taxes. But you said, go to the side where you had the number of registrations, 14 registrations in 2023, 10 in 2024. That's on top of existing empty buildings or vacant buildings, or is that how many?
Those are how many that we currently have registered. So we
currently
currently
have.
have 10. So the 14 that we had, those were back in 2023. Currently, we have
Okay.
10, and those are the ones that are currently registered.
Okay. And what's the problem that we've experienced thus far from vacant buildings in general? And we're talking about, when we talk about vacant buildings, I think probably most of us think about warehouses, big buildings, but we're talking about homes as well, because this
Yes.
covers residential. So help me understand, what is the issue that we're experiencing?
So some of the issues that we're experiencing are citizens have reached out to me, basically just asking how long is this building going to stay vacant? It's not good for our property. It's not good for our area. We don't like the look of a vacant property. There really isn't anything outside of those things. The grass is mowed, the property, because we ensure that the grass is mowed, the property is secure. It's not, you can't get into it any kind of way. If there's a pool in the back, we make sure that that fence is up, or we have something that secures it. So really, it's just a matter of people don't want vacant houses. They're worried about people breaking into them, the safety of their neighborhood, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I know in my neighborhood, there was a home that burned down
Yes.
like over a year ago. I haven't been over there in a while, but last time I saw it, it was still there like the day after it burned down.
Yeah.
If I were the neighbor, I'd be pretty upset that there wasn't some policy that the city could enforce to clean that mess up. I would have thought that that would have already been there at this point. I'd be curious to see a map of where all of our vacant structures are.
Okay.
And to understand if there are specific issues, vagrancy. I mean, the two buildings that come to my mind that we've had the most issues with, they were city-owned buildings, so, and they're being addressed or have been addressed. So, so this is kind of new to me. Do we have tax delinquencies among these vacant buildings currently?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can look into it just to be on the.
I'd also
to
be
sure.
curious to know, are some of these vacant buildings currently in dispute with DCAD about their property valuations and are part of, the figure in our budget where we're not getting the tax revenue yet because we're waiting for them to
Yeah.
solve their dispute. So at what point is a vacant building considered vacant?
I believe in the ordinance, it says after, I want to say it's 150 days, but let me double check just to be on the safe side. So if property has to be vacant for a certain number of days, it says it in our ordinance, then it's considered to be a vacant building.
And that's the same number of days for residential as it is for commercial?
Yes, and I believe for multifamily, I believe 75% of the units have to be empty for it to be considered.
Yeah, there's a
vacant
lot of
building.
turnover there, of course.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm supportive. I think some of the information we're asking for is nice to know. It's not a need to know, but it's good to know.
Okay.
And if they'll be honest with us and, great. I think just from a city planning purpose, it can be helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bear.
Just two other quick things. So in my mind, the whole tax thing, we already have, DCAT or whoever's going to, we know when taxes are not being paid. So does that need to go in here also? That seems, again, redundant. And then I was just wondering, especially on residential units, how do you know when it's vacant? And how can you prove that?
So, for example, one of the properties that we recently had, the property owner was deceased. The police went in there and they found that
Yeah, I
the
remember that.
property was vacant at
district.
that point. Another one that we have is on Pebble Beach, I believe, and that one has boards all around the property. It was a project that was started, taken down to the studs and never finished. So
Right.
things like that is what we have registered, where we have evidence we can see either from the public
Sure.
right of way or we've worked with police and fire.
Those are the obvious ones.
Probably
Because there's-
utilities.
And
Code
yes,
enforcement.
utilities as well, or they've registered. So some of these owners are actually registering on their own just because they know where they've been doing it for a few years prior. So
Gotcha.
that's how we have that actual information.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question. I was debating on whether I was going to ask it or not, but let me just go ahead and ask it since we're here. Is it against the law to own a house in the city and not occupy it?
No.
Okay. But it would be classified as a property that nobody lives in. And I'm only talking about single-family homes.
Yes.
Okay, because I've known of two instances where people have bought homes. One was a really nice house, never moved in, used it as a storage unit for their business down on Harry Hines.
Okay.
Okay, again, kept the outside, maintained appearance of the house, paid property taxes, the whole bit, but nobody ever lived in the house. Every once in a while, you'd see a car over there loading up boxes of stuff, and that was it. So is that an issue in a single-family neighborhood?
It would be, so we would have to be able to address it. We would have to be able to see that they're using it for storage. And that is one of the, when I was communicating with these other municipalities, that is why quite a few of them do not have a vacant building registration in place, because it is hard to prove it. And also kind of what Councilman Baird was saying, where are we going with this, right? Like, how do we enforce these things?
So, and that's for you all to decide as the elected officials, but I guess the question is whether you want to allow something like that to persist. I don't know. Then you start getting into the whole property rights issue of how people can use their property.
That's
Maybe-
already a violation of our code. That's a violation of our zoning.
The business, running a business, right?
Yeah, running a business from the home.
They're running a business in your example.
They're not running a business out of the house. They're
Well, but
using
they
the
are.
house as a storage facility.
So a
But that's-
storage
that would-
facility.
That's running a business.
So
They're running a warehouse.
a warehouse.
Yeah.
So it's a zoning violation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what recourse do the residents, the obviously good standing residents of the city have when they see something like that or are aware of something like that? What are they supposed to do?
So they can report it to us on the FBTX Connect app. We can go take a look at it. Like I said, it's a matter of us just being able to see this is being used for storage from the public right of way. So if it is something that we can see, that would be a zoning violation.
Okay, that's all I got.
I'll chime in for a third time, rarity. So one thing that came to mind was, you said 150 days?
It is 150, yes, it is 150.
So that's 5 months?
Yes, it has to be vacant for 5
So what if somebody had a property here as a vacation home, because, Farmers Branch is the vacation hotspot of Texas, and it was vacant for over 150 days because they only come once or twice a year or something? I know it's kind of a
Yeah.
crazy.
So, yeah,
but
it would,
I just want to throw that out. But also, I wanted to be clear that I'm for what this is proposing. I just think that we already have most of it already in place. And then instead of having this added to what we have, we should reinforce the codes, basically. So, thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. So you have enough to go on? The general consensus was everybody was supportive?
yes, yeah, I believe so. So I know that some of you said up-to-date taxes and a few of you said no. Is that something you guys would like added to the,
It just seems like it's already taken care of to me, but
okay, all right,
whatever the majority says.
yes. Okay, anybody else? Yes, okay, all right, thank you.
All righty, thank you. Next up is item C4, receive an update on the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget.
We just put new batteries in it. So, if you got your- Now, there should be. I don't know how to connect it though. There should be a power button.
Technically difficult.
Well, it says new batteries, but I don't know.
You can just use the clicker.
Yeah, you can just use this for now.
Tammy Zimmerman, Director of Finance, Fleet and Facilities. Need to add that. Budget discussion. Okay, so it's been a mere 5 days, I believe, since we put out the proposed fiscal year 24 and 25 budget. According to our charter, it's required to go out on July 31st. So the main item was that we are proposing a tax decrease of 2 3/4 cents on our tax rate, representing the largest tax rate decrease over 41 years. And this proposed balanced budget that was given to the City Council, and it's now posted on our transparency website, it was based on keeping our property tax revenues the same as this year's collections. And this budget was originally forecasted to have higher valuations from DCAD, Dallas Central Appraisal District. It was a conservative forecast. However, the valuations came back lower. We originally started out in May with preliminary valuations of $11 billion. And up until a few days until they certified those on July 25th, it went down to 9.9. Please keep in mind that commercial makes up 73% of our property tax. So the decreased valuations weren't able to allow us a larger tax rate decrease. And you've seen this budget timeline. Again, we're into the home stretch with August and September left. We just had our budget go out to the public. Again, can be easily located on our transparency website. August 20th, we have a proposed tax rate vote, and we will have to publicize a public hearing on the maximum tax rate. It's an uncomfortable vote. In the past, we have used the voter approval tax rate as our maximum. And I have a slide at the very end that goes through the terminology of voter approval tax rate, no new revenue rate. Those are new terms that were brought forth with Senate Bill 2. So we have the budget town hall on August 27th, and we are currently underway and getting that prepared and ready. September, we have the hearings and we have the votes on the proposed rates, budgets, and our fees. So when we were putting together this proposed 24-25 budget, first of all, I want to commend the city staff for all the hard work that they put into putting this budget together, and the council and mayor's guidance and direction and putting together a prudent, transparent, and a lean operating plan. This budget cycle had quite a few challenges. We're showing an economic downturn, but we still have high cost. And we have aging infrastructure and fleet that we're still having to provide a significant amount of our budget to. Our revenues, again, I'm going to state that there's no property tax revenue increase in this budget. And that's was made more difficult with our decrease in our sales tax revenue. So we've projected a little over $1 million in our sales tax revenue from prior year. Service levels. We went through a budget specially called meeting where we were providing all the different service levels. We were given direction by City Council where we streamlined some services, especially in our Parks Department, our library. The central theme being increased public safety and keeping the same high expectations for our service levels. And we wanted to do that while we give property tax relief for our residents, cutting this tax rate by 2.75 pennies. We're continuing to invest in our public safety, and we have strong financial policies still in place. So we'll get back to the questions and discussion. I wanted to go over the proposed tax rate. So again, Senate Bill 2 required some new terminology, and the back of your budgets is about 10 pages of the truth in taxation calculations. They're not easy, but the main thing is I wanted to point out the proposed tax rate with that 2.75% reduction puts us below the no new revenue rate. So no new revenue, that is the tax rate. If you take the same properties this year and they have some increased valuations next year, what is the tax rate that gets you the same tax bill? So our no new revenue rate is at 0.548515. And again, our proposed tax rate is lower than our no new revenue rate. The voter approval tax rate is including the 3.5% growth. So we're not taking advantage of the 3.5% growth that we're allowed with Senate Bill 2. So I want to point out that again, this proposed tax rate is below the no new revenue rate. When we were discussing with Dallas County, do we still have to go and do public hearings on the maximum tax rate? Since our rate that's proposed is below the no new revenue rate and the voter approval tax rate, they said, we've never had a city do that. So they're going to go ahead and do like you've always done, but we've never had a city do that. So I want to go back and mention, before I open it for discussion, that you have new budget binders on your desk. There's 2 slight changes from what you received last week, and those are minor changes with our capital projects. There was $2.5 million budgeted for our senior center with the GEO bonds. That's been reduced to $2 million. And there's Mercer Park, which about a month ago we reallocated in this fiscal year $1 million of ARPA funds to go to the Justice Center. So it's just correcting that. Okay, so I've shown the timeline. The rest of August and September will be busy. We'll need to start notifying our residents on the upcoming trash fee. That'll take effect in October. We have those public hearings, so if there's any changes to the budget, it's a little bit harder to do, and I would need to know that information very soon. So all of that to say, I'm open to feedback or answering any questions.
Very good, Tammy, thank you. We'll start, Councilman Neal.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the latest update that you sent. I think I received it on Friday. Unfortunately, I've not had time to fully go through all 160-some
days,
pages, and I will do that. I'm just going to need a little time to do that, and I may have some questions after going through that in great more detail.
Councilman Roman?
Will you go back to your slide about the 2.75 cent reduction, please? Does that 2.75 cent reduction include the $500,000 of revenue from the trash fee?
It does.
Okay. I don't see that note.
So
or dis-
include the tax, I'm sorry. The budget includes the trash fee. This tax rate cut doesn't include what the effect of a trash fee would be, because that varies with the different property values. If you have a higher valued home, the $5 monthly fee would be a different, it'd be about maybe a penny versus one that's valued at a lower level or a much higher level. So we were debating on how to show the trash fee. For our seniors, it's $250 a month, and that was, if you recall back on some of the $500,000 evaluations of a home, a senior with a homestead and the senior exemption would be about, I think it would be exactly the trash fee for a penny.
Okay. So this is the effective rate.
Effective tax rate that is in the budget. Yes.
I have other questions, but I'll save them for later, another time.
Councilman Reed?
I just want to thank you guys for all the hard work that you put in so far. I know it's been, I'd say late nights, but I know there's been some days where it was just very long days going into the next day. So I want to express my appreciation for what you guys have done in regards to, or your devotion to the city and to bringing us this budget.
It's a huge team effort. Again, I'm going to call out
Right.
my budget manager, Suzanne Pritchard, but all the departments put in hours and hours, and our city managers as well.
So when I say you, it's the
Yes.
Massachusetts in
Thank
me.
you.
You guys.
Yes, yes.
It's y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all.
You're in Texas. You're in Texas now.
If you've got a hat, you
I
say.
try to apply that every once in a while.
Okay.
It's not always fluent.
Councilman Baird?
I'll echo thanks to you and everybody. I just had one question. I didn't write fast enough. You had expected 11 billion and it came in
11
at-
billion and
9.9.
assessed valuations, and it came in at 9.9.
Okay, thank you. That was all at this time. Thanks.
Councilman Jackson?
Same thing, Tammy. To you and your team, a lot of hard work, a lot of great work here. And I just want you to know that we appreciate that very much.
Thank you. I'll pass it on.
I would like to go back to the slide where you had the no new revenue rate as opposed to the voter approval rate. And you made the remark that no, that's not happened before with the
Correct.
city. Can you, I understood a little bit, but I didn't understand it all. So would you mind going back
Sure.
and re-explaining that? I want to make sure that I understand that part.
Sure.
And that's not in our books yet, is it?
No,
Or-
this was a slide I added at the
Okay.
end, and so this wasn't in the presentation. So it will be a slide that we'll probably bring forward on August 20th
Okay.
as we're voting on the maximum tax rate. So let's go through no new revenue tax rate. So I've done a presentation before where when assessed valuations go up, it's a seesaw effect where the no new revenue rate goes down. So you're taking those same set of properties and the new valuations, what would be the tax rate to get the same amount of revenue? When you have years where you have an increase, the opposite holds. If the assessed valuations on homes go down, then your no new revenue rate can go up because it's getting the same revenue
Right.
amount.
Right.
Your tax bill remains the same. So add on to that the 3.5% growth that's allowed with Senate Bill 2. Keep in mind, Senate Bill 2 took the allowed growth from 8% to 3.5%. So that gets you your voter approval tax rate. If you were to go above that, you have to get voter approval. We have the proposed tax rate in the blue is less than our no new revenue rate. So we're leaving the 3.5% allowed growth on the table, and we're going even below what we collected in revenue this fiscal year.
So true tax rate reduction.
True tax rate reduction. So
Okay.
it will be a slow increase back up.
Thank you. Well, Mayor.
Okay. Tammy, thank you. I'm going to have to wait on my questions also.
Okay.
Haven't had enough free time to
Yeah, no,
study this, but thank you for going over it. And let me just echo, not just to you, but to all the department heads and managers, because this was everybody pitching in order to make this budget work. So thank you all for doing your part. And maybe next time we see Tammy, her hair will be on fire.
okay, so with that, we will move along and get ready for the advertisements and the public hearings and the town halls.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. want to try to do this next item really quick. This is C5, receive an update from the mayor and council members regarding board liaison information from outside organizations and other meetings attended. Does anybody have anything? Dave has MetroCrest Services.
MetroCrest Services, I just want to share what they shared with me in regards to the services they provided to Farmers Branch residents from October 23rd to July, October of 23 to July of 24. 3,837, all these numbers are unduplicated. Farmers Branch residents have been provided services. 3628 have accessed our food pantry for nutritious food. 169 households have been provided financial education to assist with budgets and coaching. 195 have received workforce development services to secure a job or find a better paying position. 113 families have been provided emergency assistance with rent and utilities for a total of $137,000. 156 Farmers Branch children received SAC summer hunger meals. Additionally, this is where folks can help out with MetroCrest Services. The annual MetroCrest Services Community Picnic will occur on September 28th. Mark that in your calendars from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This event has a carnival-type atmosphere along with 30 booths dedicated to nonprofit resources and for-profit businesses. Typically, they get 800 to 1,000 people. Everything is free. Attendance is free. Come on down. Carrollton Farmers Rotary will provide hot dogs all day. Local police and fire will be invited to attend as well. They're also planning to have their fall gala for November 16th. Details to follow. All proceeds go to support local families. Lastly, they're having a toilet paper drive for the food pantry. It runs until August 26th. Their goal is to get 75,000 rolls of toilet paper. If you recall, about 4 years ago, I think we all went through a time when we didn't know where our next roll of toilet paper was coming from with the shortage in the stores. So please keep that in mind and donate to the pantry. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Anybody else have any other organizational?
Quick question, location of that picnic?
Doesn't say.
MetroCrest
I
usually.
can get
Is it
that
at their
out.
facility?
Is it?
At their facility.
Okay.
Mayor and council, we'll put that on the calendar for you all so you have it.
Okay, real quick, Mayor, the MetroCrest Chamber of Commerce, a couple of updates. There's a survey going on right now. The president, Michael Gallups, would like to get our input. I've just forwarded that to Stacy, so she'll make sure that you each get a copy and can participate. There is an economic development luncheon on August the 28th from 11 to 2 at the Courtyard Marriott in Carrollton. It's been expanded this year, so in addition to our 3 economic directors from Carrollton, Farmers Branch, and Addison being guest speakers, Brian Daniel from the chair of the Texas Workforce Commission will be there to talk about workforce and how it impacts economic development. And then the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas will also be there to talk about the state of the North Texas economy in our region. So if you're interested in attending that, or the Connect and Learn lunches are cranking back up again, another one tomorrow. They're 11:30 at BJ's and Addison's, a great opportunity for businesses to network, kick the tires of the chamber. Check it out at metrocrestchamber.com.
Very good, thank you. I've got several things. I'm going to try to breeze through this really quick so we can recess for dinner. Councilman Jackson, Reed, and myself toured the Branch Connection to take a look at the progress that was being made over there. Phase 2 construction was going to take a little bit longer than originally anticipated. Now with the building also needing a new roof, I believe we're looking at about 26 weeks or 26 more weeks of construction. Getting the head nod, yes. Okay. Plans are underway currently for the city's Veteran Day event, which will be held on November 11th at the Rec Center. So please be on lookout for that. Mark your calendars. Chief McCoy and I continue to attend and have representation at North Texas Crime Commission so we can learn about what's happening in the Metroplex crime trend-wise. Last month, we had a really interesting presentation from the Collin County District Attorney. Next week, Eduardo Chavez, who is the agent in charge of the DEA, is going to make a presentation to the group, so very interested in hearing that. I made an awards presentation to the Brookhaven College girls soccer team for winning their third straight national championship, three-peat. That is not easy to do. In fact, they've won 5 national championships, I believe, in the last 7 years, 7 or 8 years. So these girls are on fire. And the college is really, they're really doing good things over there by those girls. And they only have those girls for 2 years. So it's testament to their success. I attended a meeting that was presented by the North Texas Commission on Destination Gaming. I talked about this yesterday morning at the senior breakfast. This meeting was for elected officials and other business leaders to inform and educate without taking any position. There were representatives there from the Sands Casino Corporation to present some information about exactly what destination gaming is. I can assure people that at this time, casino gambling is not coming to Farmers Branch. Now, despite me having gone to a meeting just to get better educated so I can form an opinion one way or the other, some have taken that as, oh my gosh, Terry's sold out the city and we're going to get a casino here. That is not the case. However, the Sands Corporation has bought land in Irving. So the old Texas Stadium site, they have bought that site and they're banking on this getting approved at some point in the future. So we are years away from this happening, many years. And this is an issue that will have to be discussed in the legislature and then put to the voters for a vote for approval. So again, there will be lots of discussion. There will be lots of lobbying, I'm sure, in years to come, both pro and con, or for and against this issue. So just know that, I'm sorry? Okay. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I haven't said I'm for it. I haven't said I'm against it. But I would like more information so I can make an informed decision, and I would hope that that's what people in general do. So enough about that. I also attended the American Planning Association's Elected Officials Workshop, which was in the North Richland Hills. This was very informative. I'd like to thank Pat Trapp, Brianna Banks, and Dan Hurd, who are on our P&Z, for also attending. Also, Sarah, Lily, and Brian from our planning department were there. This was almost a whole day thing where we learned about a number of topics as relates to planning and planning development. So thank you all for coming and investing your day to learn about that. I was invited by Dr. Charles Koo to attend the Greater Dallas Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce luncheon, along with a number of other congressional and state representatives. That took place a week ago, and the Greater Dallas Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce, their office is actually in Farmers Branch. So I learned an awful lot while I was there. I learned that Mayor Munz in Plano is really raising the bar because he went on a business development trip to Taiwan, and they have 6 businesses that are coming to Plano and opening up offices in Plano. So maybe Perla and I need to go. I also attended a hazard mitigation meeting presented by Dallas County and H2O Partners to learn about grant funding available to cities in the area as a result of a special declaration that's been made either by the governor or the president. There are funds available to assist with disaster declarations. City doesn't need to be one that was necessarily affected. You just have to be in the area. And this area, we've already utilized some of these funds for a project on Farmers Branch Creek, but I thought it was really interesting, and I wanted to know more about it. Luke Parton from Emergency Management has been going to these meetings, so he's very well versed on all of this. I attended a community meeting. I was invited by Warden Scarlett Grant down at the Federal Correctional Institute in Seagoville to learn about what impact a federal prison has in the community and how it serves not just the city of Seagoville, but the surrounding area. Really, really interesting. Looking forward to going back for a tour on that. Yesterday, the Dallas Regional Mobility Coalition, or Friday rather, met and had an update on transportation projects in the area. That's a monthly thing. No new news to report. Highway project on I-35 is on schedule, so we keep monitoring that. There is some new dirt material, road-based material at the TxDOT property along 635. We're hoping that that will get used and moved out of there quickly. And then upcoming meetings, Perla and I are going to be meeting with Texas Restaurant Association. There are 2 Trinity River Authority meetings coming up that I'll be at. Of course, the Regional Transportation Commission has their meeting on Thursday. There's also the North Texas Job Fair that we are a sponsor of with Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne. That takes place on Thursday, and then I think the following week is the Metro Crest Hospital Authority meeting. So, with that, that's what I've been doing, in case anybody thinks I haven't been doing anything. Last item, discuss future agenda items, C6. Have anything?
I've got 2. Number 1, since the developer of the Mercer Crossing development will be here in attendance, actually they'll be part of the 820 agenda to discuss the status of Mercer Park. I asked that an agenda item be added to discuss the current status of outstanding projects within the Mercer Crossing development, including unfinished sidewalks, cables to be buried, et cetera, and the timeline for their expected completion.
Okay.
Secondly, I'm not sure whether this would be a study session or a regular agenda item. A discussion regarding proper decorum being exercised during public meetings to include, but not limited to, showing proper respect to other members of the council and the mayor in both word and deed.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman Baird.
Nothing. Thank you.
Councilman Jackson.
Nothing at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Neal.
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
All right. I don't have anything. Thank you all for that. We're going to adjourn at 5:24. We will have executive session tonight, but that will be after the regular meeting.